Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. The death toll from COVID-19 in Brazil has topped 80,000 with 632 deaths in the past 24 hours. With more than 2,200 new cases, the countrywide infections have crossed 2.1 million. In the US, the number of deaths is nearing 141,000 with more than 3.8 million people testing positive so far. In Pakistan, more than 5,600 people have lost their lives to the virus, with 40 deaths overnight. 1,013 new cases were recorded, with the tally crossing 266,000. The virus has cost over 609,000 lives worldwide, while infecting more than 14.6 million. Azerbaijan says it is down to Armenian drones in the southern Agdam and northern Tovuz regions. The country's defense ministry says the unmanned aerial vehicles were on an intelligence gathering mission regarding the positions of Azerbaijani forces. The recent border clashes between the two countries have claimed the lives of 11 Azeri soldiers and 4 Armenian servicemen. The UK government has failed to conduct any proper assessment of Russia's attempts to interfere with the 2016 Brexit referendum. This was revealed in UK's Intelligence and Security Committee report on alleged Russian activities in British politics. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has accused Russia of trying to meddle in UK's political affairs. But Russia's ambassador to the UK, Andrew Callan, has dismissed all accusations, saying Moscow isn't interested in. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. The death toll from COVID-19 in Brazil has topped 80,000 with 632 deaths in the past 24 hours. With more than 2,200 new cases, the countrywide infections have crossed 2.1 million. In the US, the number of deaths is nearing 141,000, with more than 3.8 million people testing positive so far. The virus has cost over 609,000 lives worldwide, while infecting more than 14.6 million. More in this report.
While the world waits for a vaccine, COVID-19 continues to surge in the Americas, parts of Africa, and South Asia. American states of Florida, California, and Texas are the ones worst hit by the second wave, with over 60,000 infected in the country every day. Australia has extended its jobs support program as new coronavirus outbreaks threaten the economy.
So our plan for those who aren't in a job is to help them get into a job or train them for a job. Our plan for those who are on JobKeeper in a business that is still eligible for that is to maintain that support.
2 more cabinet ministers have tested positive in Latin America's worst-hit Brazil as President Jair Bolsonaro sticks to his stance against lockdowns. Colombia is now dealing an aggressive spread of the virus as cases and deaths in the country peak.
The most challenging moments of the pandemic are coming, those which will put us all to the test as people, as a society, as a country. But I am certain that the same resilience that has strengthened us in the past will do so once again, and we will continue being the strong nation that the whole world knows us as.
Meanwhile, 11 new COVID-19 cases have been reported on the Chinese mainland, with 8 domestically transmitted. South Korea reported more than 40 new cases due to cluster infections tied to a nursing hospital in the capital city.
Pakistan has reported 40 deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours, raising the total to 5,639. The health ministry says the 1,013 new cases were reported overnight as the tally crossed 266,000. Officials said more than 208,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. The ministry said there are now more than 52,000 active cases in the country. Sindh is the worst hit province with over 113,000 infections, while Punjab has reported more than 90,000 cases. Azerbaijan says it has downed two Armenian drones in the southern Agdam and northern Tovuz regions. The country's defense ministry says the unmanned aerial vehicles were on an intelligence gathering mission regarding the positions of Azerbaijani forces. Recent border clashes between the two countries have claimed the lives of 11 Azeri soldiers and 4 Armenian servicemen. Earlier, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged both the sides to exercise maximum restraint. The region also serves as a corridor for pipelines taking oil and gas from the Caspian Sea to the world markets. European Union leaders have reached a deal on an $859 billion post-pandemic economic recovery package. The fund offers grants and loans to the 27-nation bloc to counter the economic fallout of COVID-19. More in this report.
After a marathon summit that started on Friday last week, European Union leaders have finally found common ground. The $2,100 billion budget and coronavirus recovery fund allocates $1,241 billion reconstruction of European Union post-pandemic. French President Emmanuel Macron has hailed this as a historic change in Europe. European Council President Charles Michel says this agreement sends a concrete signal that Europe is a force for action.
This is a strong deal, and most importantly, this is the right deal for Europe right now. I would like to thank all the leaders and the President of the Commission and their teams for their hard work.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the recovery fund shows the bloc is capable of acting jointly even during its biggest crisis. After being criticized for creating roadblocks in the deal's approval, the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte said relations with the bloc remain strong despite earlier difficult negotiations.
In the end, I'm very happy that what the Netherlands pays to Europe will be corrected for economic growth and inflation. That was the most important one.
The summit, which began in Brussels on Friday morning, saw more than 90 hours of talks and became the EU's longest since a 2000 meeting. News of the European Union's Recovery Fund has already sent European shares to a 4-month high, signaling positive sentiment in European markets.
Tehran says it is high time to create a club of countries hit by sanctions like Russia, China and Iran. Iran's ambassador to Russia, Qasem Jalali, said the countries that were targeted by Washington sanctions should counteract. The diplomat said Washington does not want to see any rivals whose positions in any region will be stronger than those of the US. Meanwhile, Iran is set to welcome Iraq's Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi at the Mehrabad International Airport today. Tehran said the delegations of the two countries will begin bilateral talks. The Iraqi Prime Minister will also have a one-on-one meeting with the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. A German activist, Hala Muis, has been kidnapped by unknown gunmen in Iraq's capital, Baghdad. Police said Muis was abducted near her office on the Abu Nuwas street during evening hours. They said teams from defense and interior ministries as well as police are searching the area. No group has claimed responsibility for the kidnapping yet. Muis is an activist and also the head of the culture department of German Goethe Institute in Baghdad. Syria claims it has thwarted an Israeli air attack above the capital Damascus. State media said Israeli missiles came from over the Syrian Golan Heights, targeting areas around the capital. A Syrian military spokesperson said the air defenses shot down most of the missiles. The spokesperson said some projectiles inflicted only material losses. Eyewitnesses said loud blasts were heard in the capital, which shook windows of several neighborhoods. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli officials. The UK government has failed to conduct any proper assessment of Russia's attempts to interfere with the 2016 Brexit referendum. This was revealed in the Intelligence and Security Committee's long-awaited report into the alleged Russian activity in the UK. The report said government ministers turned a blind eye to allegations of Russian disruption. The findings are the result of an 8-month investigation into Russia's influence in UK politics. The report was delayed last year when Prime Minister Boris Johnson called a general election as it was being completed. Earlier, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab accused Russia of trying to meddle in UK's affairs, but Russia's ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kelin, has dismissed all the accusations, saying Moscow isn't interested in British politics. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has held talks with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson in London. Pompeo's visit comes as tensions are brewing with China to dominate international affairs. He will also meet with senior members of Johnson's Conservative Party who blocked plans to give China's Huawei a role in the UK. Pompeo is expected to discuss matters related to Huawei and relations with China. In a statement, the US State Department said Pompeo will also travel to Copenhagen on the 22nd of July, where he will meet the Danish Prime Minister. China says it will resolutely respond to the UK over its interference in Beijing's internal affairs, which contravenes international law. Chinese embassy in the UK said Britain has repeatedly made wrong remarks on Hong Kong's national security law. This comes after the UK suspended its extradition treaty with Hong Kong indefinitely. UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said earlier arrangements between the two countries will not be reactivated unless there are clear safeguards which are able to prevent extradition from the UK being misused under the new national security legislation. France says it will not ban China's Huawei from investing in the country, reaffirming Paris's relations with Beijing. But Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said France's national interests and sensitive locations will be protected.
The US State Department has been pressuring allies not to use Huawei's 5G. Le Maire said, unlike Britain, Paris will not impose a blanket ban on Huawei. Washington initially accused the Chinese tech giant of being an espionage tool of the Chinese government. But when those accusations were falsified, the State Department has now taken a position accusing China of human rights abuses. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has also proposed a block of 5G clean countries against Chinese telecommunication companies. So far, Poland and the United Kingdom have backed the initiative.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. An armed man has taken about 20 people hostages on a bus in the western Ukrainian city of Lusk. Officials say there have been no casualties so far and the culprit's demands are not clear. Ukrainian Deputy Interior Minister Anton Herashchenko said the suspect claimed to have a bomb. In a statement, the minister said police have launched a special operation and the negotiations were underway. Local media have shared the suspect's Twitter account on which he is posting criticism of political figures. Russia claims its first vaccine against the new coronavirus is ready. In an interview, First Deputy Defense Minister Ruslan Salikov said the vaccine has been created by military specialists and scientists. Salikov said the final assessments on the results of the testing by the scientists of National Research Center have been made already. The Defense Ministry said the vaccine has gone through successful completion of clinical trials. It said at the moment of release, all volunteers without exception developed immunity against the COVID-19 and felt normal. In June, the ministry issued a permit for clinical tests of liquid and frozen dried vaccines being tested on 43 volunteers for each kind. The World Health Organization has expressed concern and alarm at the rapid spread of COVID-19 in Africa. Talking to media, WHO's emergencies chief Michael Ryan warned the number of cases will spike greatly if immediate help is not provided. Ryan pointed out the situation in South Africa, where 13,373 cases emerged overnight. He said it can be a precursor of what the region has in store. The African continent remains the world's second least affected after Oceania. But the situation has become increasingly worrying, particularly in South Africa, where the coronavirus cases are nearing 400,000. In the U.S., Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden has vowed to include Muslim Americans in his administration if he wins the November election. Speaking at a webinar to Muslim American voters, Biden said he will end the travel ban seen as targeting Muslim-majority countries. Biden said that Muslim Americans were the first to feel the assault from Donald Trump's harsh policies. The Democratic nominee said he wished Americans were taught more in schools about the Islamic faith. Several elected Muslim Americans have endorsed Biden for president in a letter organized by Engage Action ahead of the summit. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Indiana Congressman Andre Carson were among the signatories. President Donald Trump has threatened to send law enforcement personnel to major U.S. cities to counter anti-racism protests. He said New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Baltimore, Oakland, and California are possible areas for sending in federal forces. Officers last week began cracking down on Portland protests against police brutality and systemic racism. They used tear gas and took some activists into custody without explanation. State and local leaders in Oregon, as well as members of Congress, have called for Trump to remove Department of Homeland Security officers from Portland. But Trump says the protesters are anarchists who must be handled through the troops.
More federal law enforcement, that I can tell you. In Portland, they've done a fantastic job. They've been there 3 days, and they really have done a fantastic job in a very short period of time. No problem. They grab them, a lot of people in jail, they're leaders. These are anarchists. These are not protesters. People say protesters. These people are anarchists. These are people that hate our country, and we're not going to let it go forward.
Sudan has started a new trial against ousted President Omar al-Bashir on charges of leading a military coup in 1989. Al-Bashir has been jailed in Khartoum since he was ousted in April last year following mass protests against his 30-year rule. State media says the other defendants include former allies of Bashir who helped him in the 1989 coup. A Sudanese court handed Bashir a 2-year sentence in December on corruption charges. The former autocrat also faces trials and investigations over the killing of protesters. Presidents of Nigeria, Ghana, and Ivory Coast are headed to Mali to try and end the political crisis unraveling in the country. Mali is struggling with the rising unrest amid a crumbling economy due to the fallout of COVID-19. In a joint statement, the West African bloc, ECOWAS, said the visit is aimed at negotiating a truce. Earlier, Mali's President Boubacar Keïta announced the dissolution of the Constitutional Court in an attempt to calm the unrest. But demonstrators say their civil disobedience movement will not end until the Keïta government is ousted. Protesters say 20 people have been killed, while the health ministry puts the toll at 11. European stocks have risen after EU leaders reached a deal on an $857 billion COVID-19 recovery fund. Positive news in the hunt for coronavirus vaccine has buoyed market sentiment in Europe. All sectors and major bourses are trading in positive territory. The pan-European stock 600 climbed over 1% in early trade, with banks adding almost 3.5% to lead the gains. London's FTSE has gained over 0.5%, while France's CAC 40 is up almost 1.5%. Germany's DAX has jumped almost 2%. Earlier, most Asian shares also traded higher, with the exception of mainland Chinese shares. In football, Wolves beat Crystal Palace by 2-0 in a Premier League clash at an empty Molineux Stadium. With this victory, the Wanderers have moved up to the 6th place on the points table. Striker Daniel Podence scored his first goal for Wolves by nodding in from close range. Castro Otto added the second one in the 68th minute to extend Wolves' lead. The home win has brightened the Europa League hopes for the Wanderers with one more game to play. In the day's other matches, Newcastle United played a goalless draw against Brighton, while Everton edged Sheffield United by 1-0. In the Italian Serie A, Juventus beat Lazio by 2-1 at an empty Allianz Stadium. Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice and became the first player to score 50 goals in a Serie A, La Liga and the Premier League. After a goalless first half, Ronaldo stuck the first goal with a penalty shot in the 51st. He added another one in quick succession to extend the lead for Juventus. Ciro Immobile scored the consolation penalty for Lazio in dying minutes of the match. Juventus are 8 points clear of Inter Milan and need 4 points to clinch a 9th consecutive title. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.